Quintana's ready. 3-1 delivery. Swung on, hit high, deep to right center field. This ball is gone. We are tied at 3.
And with that, good evening and welcome everybody to Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside of me is my co-host, Mike Rasinski. That was the one, the only, Tom Hamilton, knocking it out of the park on his home run call of Andres Gimenez as the Guardians completed another sweep today, defeating the New York Mets by a score of 6-3. What an afternoon of baseball for the Guardians. Mike, how impressive is this so far for the Guardians? 33-17 record overall, 6-game winning streak. They swept 2 home series, taking out Minnesota, a couple of games with late game heroics, and then today the comeback against the Mets.
I love it. This is amazing, and I think it's the real deal too. I mean, as I'm looking at the stats right now, they're tied with the Yankees for first place in all of the American League, just behind the Phillies for, I guess, would it be second in all of baseball right now. And we're a quarter of the way through the season. Young team. This reminds me a lot of 2022 when they had a young team and they just kind of overperformed. And they're doing it with just balanced baseball. Top 10 in home runs, middle pack with average, top, I think, 5 or 6 for ERA. So it's just a well-balanced team, and they're just fun to watch.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of things that were fun to watch, do you remember this little jingle?
Who keeps you cheering year after year? Who's got the ballpark? The best is all right here. Who's got the fans with so much Cleveland pride? Who's talking baseball? Who talking tribe? We're talking baseball. Talking tribe. Nobody plays harder than the tribe.
Love it. Where'd you find that? That's great.
Hey, you can find anything on YouTube. I was actually searching for, if you recall this, back on WAB, it was the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, watch the fun, it's here, everyone. Baseball with the tribe, looking good on channel 43. Back in the day.
That brings back good memories.
Doesn't it, though? I mean, nobody in Municipal Stadium. Mm-hmm. You're watching the game, nobody's there. The team stunk. You can literally count the number of fans in the crowd on those sad weeknight baseball games where the Indians were out of contention for the American League. At that time, it was just the AL East and the AL West. They were out of contention by like June most years. So, fantastic stuff. What a great, the way things have started out this season and the way everything has come together, despite the fact that we lose Shane Bieber after an amazing start. Gavin Williams hasn't even made his debut this season. Tristan McKenzie, he struggled today, relatively speaking. He gave up 3 solo shots. Thankfully, that was all he gave up. But at the end of the day, the Guardians once again found a way to fight back and win. And this was kind of a series here against the Mets was, I don't know, it's a bit of a symbolism or what the right word is to describe it. But you're talking about on one end of the spectrum, the New York Mets along with the big major markets like the Yankees, the Dodgers can outspend everyone. So much so that one of our former fan favorites here, Francisco Lindor, returned to Cleveland for the first time since he, left for the Mets. And, they gave him a 10-year, $340 million contract, and he has not lived up to that in any way, shape, or form. And then kind of funny enough that the person we traded, we received in return, Andres Gimenez, hits the 3-run bomb to tie up the game this afternoon, put the Guardians on the scoreboard. But here's something that I find a little bit troubling. As much as we're enjoying the victories right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question is going to be this: can we have long-term sustained success? Because I heard somebody talking about the financials,
Yep.
and they mentioned the fact that, guys in kind of in the same vein as Francisco Lindor, is unless there's some sort of an injury, such as with Shane Bieber, when it comes time to pay them, they're not, or Jose Ramirez taking a quote unquote a hometown discount. When it comes time to pay these guys, we may not be able to pay them enough. And in fact, we've got the number one draft coming up in this year's Major League Baseball draft. And now the question is, what's going to happen? Are we going to get this guy and never get to see him to his full potential, and such? And let's see here. Love the comments here, Mike from the UK. I know you're staying up late. Definitely, like you said, easily won the trade and outperformed Frankie. And of course, it's always good with the Frankie. But what do you think, Mike, about just that idea that in theory, we may not be able to have this type of sustained success, being able to keep our talent due to the financial constraints?
Yeah. So first of all, I love baseball. I love Major League Baseball. I love that they're on every night. It's on in the summer. When you're kids, you can stay up late and watch it. There's so many good things going for it. But I hate baseball in the fact that they're the only major sports in North America without a salary cap, and it handcuffs these mid-market teams. So the perfect example I like to use is the Kansas City Royals. Okay, they mortgaged their future to contend for 2 years in 14 and 2015. They made the World Series both years. They finally won it in 2015, and they've been awful for the next 10 years until they're finally good again, because it took them a decade to rebuild their minor league system through the draft and some, trading away their good players to get younger players to actually contend again. So mid-market teams can build a product to contend for 2 to 3 years, and then they're horrible for 10 years if they're lucky. Or you could go the Baltimore Orioles route and be bad for 20 years. But the major teams, because they can just hand out $341 million contracts, they will never be bad and always be in contention. And I hate it. You would never have this in football. Everybody's cheering the Kansas City Chiefs winning, 2 Super Bowls in a row. It's a mid-market team, but because of the salary cap, they actually have a level playing field. So this is one of my biggest frustrations, that I love baseball. It's one of my favorite sports, but I cannot stand that they cannot figure out how to make this work and make it more competitive. And I think in the long run, it's going to hurt the game, and fans will turn away from it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, talk about other teams. What about the Pirates? The Pirates have been long suffering ever since, they had the Killer Bees, Bonds and Bonilla, Andy Van Slyke. They're throwing out Doug Drabeck, Sid Bream. Those were some great teams. Eventually, they had to trade away their players, and then they've been awful. They have just been awful, and every time they get anybody who's even decent, they have to trade them away. The Brewers, they're another team. All these teams that are in the Central Division are all going through it, and it really stinks. You not only do you need to have a salary cap, and I know the players union wouldn't like that, but you also need to have a floor. And that's a funny thing. Mike is commenting, Ohtani almost getting paid more than our entire roster, and he's right. It's crazy.
And it kind of makes you appreciate what the Indians/Guardians have done for the last 10 years, that they've been in contention essentially for a decade with just how the front office has managed the team. And honestly, that's amazing with their payroll that they've been able to do it. And it's made them relevant and it's made them fun. And I'm glad to see the fans coming out this year to support them.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm only sad that I'm not there to be able to enjoy the games. Because I think we might have talked about it when they started getting really good in the 90s, right after they built Progressive Field or Jacobs Field. The Browns weren't around and they started selling out games. So you couldn't even get a ticket, So that was one thing. And then even after that, if you had to be fortunate to get tickets. Remember, they would have the lines at the Cleveland Indians team shops at the mall.
I was one of those members waiting in line for about 4 hours at 6 in the morning at the Summit Mall to get my tickets for the whole season. And I think you had a limit of 4 games or something. So those are the 4 games I'd go to when I was in high school back then, because that's all you could do as you waited in line for 4 hours.
Right, exactly. So it was kind of, crazy back then to not be able to go. And now I really appreciate it and wish I could be there and wish I could be attending these games. Hopefully, when I'm in Ohio, plan is to go in this summer, maybe in a few weeks, might be able to catch a game while I'm there. And the fact they're making really great deals. I know they took out some of the seating and the capacity, but the fact that you can get those standing room tickets for a whole month for like $50, that's an amazing deal. I mean, you could go sit at one of the corner bars and you've got a seat then. You meander back to your spot and you watch the game. I mean,
It's great.
it really is great marketing.
And you're getting a good product too. So this is one thing I wanted to bring up since we're talking about the Guardians too.
Absolutely.
Like, is this sustainable or not? So I was looking at so the 33-17, that's great, but are they playing good competition or not? Well, in these advanced stats, they have the record against winning teams.
Right.
So believe it or not, the Guardians are second in all of baseball in their record playing teams above 500. They are 14-7. The only team that is better is the Orioles, who are 16-6. So for comparison, you have the Yankees. They're 12-9. They're only 3 games above 500 against teams above 500. We're 7. You go with the Phillies, who have the best record in baseball.
Right.
Any guess what they are on teams against 500?
Oh, Swami, tell me.
1-2. They've played all of 3 games against teams above 500, if you can believe that.
That's crazy.
Yes. And so the fact, and then we'll just go with the Royals too, who, are second place, and they seem to win just as often as we seem to win, but good for them. But and they need to start losing. They're only 6-9, so they haven't had much success against teams above 500. So that makes me think that this could be sustainable too, and that their schedule hopefully should be getting easier as long as they can beat the teams they're supposed to beat.
Yes.
That this should be a fun year to watch.
Yes, definitely. And again, Mike, I appreciate the comments. Thank you so much for staying up till, I think you're about 5 hours ahead of us in the UK there. So we really appreciate you. This guy's a trooper. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you got to follow him on Twitter. He's more of a Cleveland fan than you and I are, I think. I really think the dedication he gives. He's watching the Cleveland Monsters too. He's unbelievable, this guy. No, but David Fry, amazing. Absolutely amazing what he's been able to do. And even Kyle Manzardo with another RBI today. That was fantastic. No, it'll be very interesting to see what the competition is. We've got a couple of road series going on the road, taking on the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. What is their name anymore?
I think you got it. Who cares? They're awful.
Well, and that's crazy. They had Ohtani and Trout, and they couldn't do squat.
Yep.
Unbelievable. So that also kind of goes to show you that you can't, just spending the money doesn't necessarily equate to winning, but it certainly does make it a little bit easier when you're not sitting there going, well, I can't sign this guy because I don't have the money. But yeah, so the Guardians go on the road. They take on the Angels. Then, as you said, they will be taking on the Rockies, and we're going to look for a full report from you from the stadium, Mike.
That's right. I'll be there on Tuesday's game in Colorado, Coors Field.
Go hunt down Andre Knott. Let's go. Let's talk.
Yeah, we'll do the Kent State connection. See if that works.
Absolutely. So that'll be fantastic. Definitely looking forward to that. And then they come home. They take on the Washington Nationals. They're not too shabby. And then the showdown with the Royals. So this is a key road trip. They've got to keep the winning going and hopefully put some distance with them and the Royals. So far, so good. And I am just hoping that we get some reinforcements in the starting pitching rotation because, you don't want to wear out the bullpen.
Yeah, I've actually got a list here. So we have 3 starting pitchers hurt: Bieber, Carrasco, and Gavin Williams right now.
Yep.
3 relievers on the injured list: Eli Morgan, James Karinchak, who whether he'd be helpful or not is debatable, and Trevor Stephan. And then arguably we have our number 2 or number 3 player in Stephen Kwan hurt right now, and we're still winning. I do take this back to, I don't know if you remember the 2021 draft class where we drafted 20 of our 22 picks were pitchers. And so that was the big gamble because they know pitching, we're a pitching factory. We have Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee out of that class, and we still have 18 more pitchers that may eventually make it out of there. That just shows you what the front office is doing, which I think is a great strategy, and I think other teams are starting to copy them in this for drafting players. Speaking of which, like you said, we have the number 1 draft. If we don't get Charlie Condon, by the way, that'll be a fail. That kid is amazing.
Oh, yeah. I want that guy. I am keeping my eyes on him. Definitely want that guy. So lots going on for the Guardians. They were wearing their spiffy City Connect jerseys today. As you and I talked about a little bit, I didn't love him at first, but I started to get a look at him, and then I liked him. I liked them paying homage to our 80s Indians teams with the blue and red stripe down the sides. I got to say, I don't like the marathon patches. This seems cheap.
Seems like they work at a gas station.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, what's your name, Joe? Can you pump some gas for me? How about I do your windshields there for you?
You would help. They joke that give them enough money to pay their players, get a couple more players too, but it doesn't seem to be the.
No, absolutely not. I'm gonna have to go self-service. Okay, we're too cheap to go full service. We're going self-service. Oh, okay, all right. So we're folks. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, we're in a little bit of a shortened timeline here. Duty calls in the world of fatherhood for Mike. And Mike from the UK notes we are still undefeated in the City Connect since we released those.
Great stat.
That is an excellent stat. We are going to put you on Stat Muse or something like that, Mike. Okay, so the Cavs, nothing really is going on with them. It's still on the JB watch, waiting to see what happens there. The game last night, that Indiana-Boston game, I don't know if you caught that, and I know we're going a little bit astray, but that end of game debacle was horrific. How can you not call a timeout on you failed to get the ball inbounds. Then you don't foul the guy. Now I know that was a very difficult time. The situation, they overplayed on it. And therefore we're not in position to really make a foul without potentially giving up a 4-point play. Awful. Absolutely just awful there. And who knows? They might get swept now.
That reminds me a little bit of the Kent State James Madison basketball game this year.
Oh my God!
Where Kent was up by 5 points with 2 seconds or something like that to go, and they somehow lost the game.
Stupid Bekelja. Bekelja, first of all, that was a lucky 3 to make it a 2-point game, and then Bekelja gets called for an offensive foul. That was unreal. But then the amazing thing then was in overtime, JMU screwed up just as badly. We tied and take it to double overtime. That was just the tale of the Kent State men's basketball season. I'll be looking forward to that. We're going to be talking some flashes this season.
I love it.
I love it. It is good time. All right. So, in other news, the Cleveland Browns began organized team activities, and there was a video that showed up of Mr. Deshaun Watson, of course. I'm not going to get hyped up about the slow motion video of him throwing in his sweat shorts, and then I'm just not going to. Although I thought it was good that he was throwing. Everyone was talking about it and wondering. But the good thing was he was in fact throwing. He looked good, and I'm going to play you a clip in a moment here from today's media availability. Nyheim Hines, who we picked up from he had been in Buffalo. We picked him up, and he had some interesting things to say that were a little bit insightful. And also, I just want to note here, Mike, commenting on the Pacers choke job last night. Yeah, that was amazing shot by Jaylen Brown to end, but yeah, the Pacers really pooped the bed on that one, to be quite honest. All right, so let me go here to the clip that I found from Hines. They are talking to him, so hold on, take a listen here.
What should we know about Ken that we don't? Because we're not in the room with him.
I think one thing is that he's going to help our passing game out tremendously, especially at the empty and explosive plays. I think with him, he's very aggressive. He's not going to be scared to call whatever he calls, and he's going to trust us and believe in us. So
he's not going to be afraid to call what he calls.
Mm.
Was Naeem Hines telling us something about who the play caller will be this fall?
I would be okay with that.
And that's either way, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
everybody's wondering. And I listened to that and I'm like, wait a second. Did he say what I think he said?
Yeah. I do wonder if we believe in Dorsey being a good play caller and he can do, I think, like you said, it could be good either way, but that would free up, Stefanski to be more of the leader for the entire team and not just the offense, which I think head coaches need to do. And I'm saying it can't work. I mean, Andy Reid calls the plays and he's an experienced coach, but generally I like it better when the head coach can actually oversee the entire team and be that leader and not just concentrate on one side of the ball. So I kind of, if that happens, I'd be okay with it. I'd welcome it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. In the interview I heard with Stefanski when he was on at ESPN Cleveland, he was talking about how he's looking at like Njoku gets, catches a pass and is running with it. And Stefanski doesn't even see the end of the play because he's looking down at his play sheet. He's like, oh, he's still running? Well, how are you supposed to call the next play if you don't know where you are on the field? So that kind of, raises some eyebrows. Now, I trust him. Stefanski has done an excellent job of the play calling, but it sounds like they're leaning toward Dorsey. Let me continue because I just read a little more of the quote, and he had some more to say that I thought was kind of interesting.
Sometimes where you're gonna be like, why did he call that? And that's because he has a really, really big belief in his guys, and he's gonna ride with his guys over his own instinct, I guess, because he trusts us like that. So that's one thing I'll say. We're gonna be aggressive, and he's gonna help our basket game get better.
So again, he's gonna, he trusts us. And he's talking about Ken Dorsey. So that could be something very interesting. I know everybody, that'll be one of the big storylines amongst others. Obviously, the Watson thing. Any updates as we go through along with Chubb and so on and so forth. And another quote that I don't have pulled up here, or don't have the audio pulled up, but Hines talked about him training out in California with Watson, and I believe he was talking about his some of his throws. So that's a good sign. I like to hear that. But one thing that does concern me about Dorsey is I saw some stuff that talked about, maybe it was Mary Kay Cabot's article, talk about like lots of RPOs and things of that nature. I just don't want this guy to get killed. Josh Allen did a lot of running in Buffalo. In the past, Dorsey gets a lot of credit for Cam Newton, but his body, he was tore up. He had an MVP season and then that was about it. I mean, so how long can you ride that train?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the only silver lining to that is if he gets hurt and we have a horrible season, at least we have our own draft pick this year.
Yes, thank you. No, you're right on the money, Mike, because and that's the whole point. And I've kind of been saying, and for whoever wants to listen to me, which is probably nobody, but look, this is a make or break year for Deshaun Watson. If he is if he stinks, whether his play is terrible or he's injured and not available, I think you take your first round pick and you move up and you go for your next quarterback.
Because the team's built to win right now.
You
just need that quarterback piece. I agree. That's not a bad strategy.
That's my thought on the matter. I mean, we'll see how it works out. I'm not a GM though. I'm working my way, but not so much there. So it will be very interesting to see what happens. And you've got problems in Cincinnati. T. Higgins still hasn't signed his franchise tender, and they love playing this clip. And I should have had this clip pulled up, but the former mayor of Cleveland, George Forbes, when Carl Monday confronts him about some bills, and he's like, I do not have the money. I do not have the money. Kind of making fun of Mike, thinking about Mike Brown and Cincinnati. I mean, it sounds like they aren't flush with liquid assets and the cash like the Browns are. So when they want to restructure their contract, they can just pay some a big chunk of money.
And now the salary cap discussion again. Teams have to make interesting choices, don't they, to balance the playing field? And this is one of the results of it, which is actually great because it makes things even.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not about the haves and the have nots. Everybody's like, okay, this is how much money we have for our roster. And so, yeah, it's crazy. I'll be very curious to see what Cincinnati does. And I heard some discussion today, Joe Burrow's health. A lot is going to hinge on him. When he's healthy, he's very good, but he's had some injuries. Lamar has been phenomenal. He's had his injuries. He's had to run to the bathroom sometimes. I mean, these things happen.
Yeah, maybe it's time for the Ravens to have an injury-riddled year, just like the Browns had last year, and see how they do. I think their time is due.
Their time is due. They certainly have had problems in the backfield a couple of years ago. Just the J.K. Dobbins and others going down.
Sure.
That boy, that was an epidemic. Going. It wasn't
Sure.
quite a pandemic. It was an epidemic. There. But Mike, as we are, going to run this a little bit, shorter of a program here, so you can do your fatherly duties here. We're going to go
Appreciate
back.
it.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here, making the time for us. Let's go here with one of our favorite segments here on Going nuCLEar, and that is the segment of Yay or Oy Vey. So, as you may have heard, Happy Gilmore 2 is on its way to Netflix. And when that comes out, that'll be good. We'll see if it's interesting. Happy Gilmore, a classic. So I started thinking about comedies and if any of them actually had a worthwhile or good sequel. So my question is this, and I didn't want to miss Mike's comment here about the from Mike. So I apologize there. I had to scroll down. But anyway, so going back to this. All right, so yay or oy vey? Any of the Police Academy sequels, Mike? Yay or a oy vey? And if so, if there is a yay, which one?
I'll say yay. I haven't seen them in about 30 years, but I was never not entertained by any of the Police Academy movies. So I could watch any of them. None of them were good, and they were all entertaining.
Yes, they were. Most of them, I think I remember the one I remember the most. The second one I wasn't a big fan of. Where they go back to training. Oh, it wasn't a great one. When they went to Miami, that was good. That was definitely a good one. But so I'm gonna begrudgingly. I'm gonna give him a yay begrudgingly.
Okay.
All right. The next one, a classic from us growing up, Revenge of the Nerds. Any of their sequels. Did you like when they got to go down to Florida and then, they had to crash the party there, as it were? Mike, Revenge of the Nerds sequels, yay or oy vey?
First of all, I just like how you picked B movies from the 80s and 90s to make up this list. I'll go yay, because yet again, I was never not entertained for any of those movies.
So what you're saying is you liked when they went to the Hotel Coral Essex?
Absolutely.
And Booger learned how to burp, better?
Yeah. The fact that you can remember all that is very impressive.
Hey, I watched a lot of those movies. I
will watch that on my plane ride to Denver this weekend.
Oh, that is fantastic. Oh, update here from Mike. The Monsters, they are 1 win away from the conference finals. They take a 1-0 lead. That's the AHL playoffs, the Cleveland Monsters. All right, lastly but not leastly on the yay, and I'm going to also, you've convinced me into a yay. I was thinking oy vey, but you convinced me onto a yay. Okay. I think I know where I'm going with this one, but I'm going to go all of the sequels to the movie Friday. Friday, a cult classic. Any of the sequels, yay or oy vey?
I guess this one I'll go oy vey, only because I didn't even know there were sequels to the Friday movie.
And there you have it. You did not know there were. Okay, Mike, assignment. You got to watch next Friday and the Friday after next.
Got it. That'll be on the plane ride home from Denver. I'll get those on.
The next Friday was pretty good. Friday after next, not so much memorable. But next Friday, I'm going to give a yay. There were definitely some good lines in that. Of course, after the original, Chris Tucker didn't continue his role, as Smokey. You know, they had Craig's cousin, Day, Mike F, and he was hilarious. And there was some good stuff with, that you need. I think you should watch that. It would be excellent. We're going to have a film review session, in a future episode, I think. So
Fair enough.
with that in mind, as you said, I kind of brought up all these B movies from the 80s and 90s and such. So I think that fits perfectly into our I'm too old for this moment. Mike, what are you too old for this week?
Okay, you actually mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but it's the standing room seats at the new Guardian Stadium. So although I love them because it's unique, it's drawing fans in, I like to sit at the ballpark and watch the game where all these millennials are standing around, talking, enjoying themselves, which is great. That's what they should be doing. But I'm not quite sure they're actually appreciating the ball game that's going on the field.
100% agree. I think for me, the only thing I would like is just the ability to get in the park. If I were like,
Yes.
okay, I need to find a way to get in and be there, I'd rather do that than not. But yes, I completely agree. Would love to be sitting there in a nice cozy seat. Maybe one of them blue seats there, fellas.
Yeah.
Oh, Pelly. All right. So what's old? I'm too old for this moment this week is that I'm finding that everything that's old is new. So what we grew up with, all the shoes that we thought were sweet, all the Jordans and Air Force Ones and all these things that we thought were sweet. Yeah, they're all and just in general, everything that we were growing up with is now back in vogue. And it's like, oh man, I am old because I remember when that first came around and that was first cool. I'm sure our parents went through the same thing when like 70s clothes became the thing and people are wearing Dickies or the butterfly collars and some, bell-bottom pants. But yeah, that's rough to realize that what's old is new.
Does that make us cool again?
I don't think the kids would give us that. I don't think they would give us that. Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Mike
Either.
in the UK loves the standing areas of the ballpark. Hopefully I make it across for a few games. Maybe you make it to Chicago, Mike from the UK. We know we've seen you at US Cellular Field or whatever they're calling that crap hole now, where nobody goes. And with that, we now switch to what has us going nuclear. Mike, why don't you tell everybody what has you going nuclear this week?
Okay, I'm going to ask a question, and the answer will be my going nuclear. So when was the last time that Cleveland has had its 3 major sports teams in the playoffs in the same year?
Okay. Well, that's a tough question. So it wasn't six. So the last time that the Browns were in the playoffs, obviously they were in the playoffs this past year, but the Guardians weren't. 2 years ago during the pandemic, I don't think the Guardians made it. The Browns made it, but they didn't. And then you have to go back to 2002. So I guess I'm going with 02.
So the answer is never. So I had to look this up too, and I even factored in the Cavs season because the Cavs, you could either go where they start the season or when they end the season. It doesn't matter. So when the Browns were good in the 80s, the Indians were horrible. When the Cavs were good in the, when they won the championship in the aughts, that's when the Browns sucked. So it's never happened. So what led me to think about that was this year we had the Browns, we've had the Cavs. Now, well, we have the Guardians. I don't know if this counts as one season since it happened in 23 and 24, but we could have the Guardians this year, and then the Browns and the Cavs are kind of on a trajectory to make it. So we'll see. But that had me going nuclear to think about. I had to go through the stats, and that has never happened, and I can't believe it. So I would love to see that happen this year.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic. And then you look at other cities like Boston, the years that the Bruins won a title, the Celtics won a title. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Mike commented last time he went to Chicago, a foul ball broke his middle finger. So I think he'll pass there. Although I've seen they have some fantastic, I don't know if it's like an ice cream sundae or something there. So, maybe that's good times. Plenty of good seats available right now for the White Sox games. Okay. So Mike, what has me going nuclear this week is the constant thing with people recording public events, arguments, whatever's going on, and then posting it to social media with no particular, they don't have the whole thing on there. And you're missing parts. And so then people have snap judgments. So not only are the situations ridiculous, But then you've got people with snap judgments about what they see and what they perceive, and it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and it gets me going nuclear when I see this kind of nonsense on there. I saw a lady on a flight, and a whole debacle was sitting in a exit row, emergency row. I don't even know, but the whole point is, everybody, look, can we put down the phones when it's not like a life-threatening situation? Can we, stop posting these types of things to social media? I just think that it's gone like 10 million steps too far or something like that.
Yes. Good luck with that. I couldn't agree with you more.
But that is what has me going nuclear this week. So, Mike, again, we're gonna jump off a little early here this week, so you can go
little baseball practice with the boys.
Little baseball practice with the boys. Have a good time with that. Have a good trip out to Colorado. Make sure you don't visit any dispensaries, even though it's illegal there.
Nope.
Let's not do that. Don't, the silver bullet. Have some Coors while you're there.
Sure. I'll come back with the full report.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, want to thank our listeners, Mike from the UK, Mike Pellegrini, tuning in. Go Monsters, Cavs. Well, the Cavs really aren't playing, but you get the point here. But thank you, as always, for tuning in. Mike, appreciate you, as always. And that is going to do it for this week. You've been watching Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage